Rock, Connecticut. For 2 years, Nissan has ruled the Rock, each time taking the measure of title contenders from Jaguar. The defending champions have come to Lime Rock armed with a totally new car, but for the first time in years, Nissan is an underdog. 3 weeks ago in Topeka, Kansas, Toyota, led by racing legend Dan Gurney, broke through for their first victory in Camel GT competition. Is Toyota the rising power in IMSA? Will Nissan's new car hold the top spot? Is this the end of the road for mighty Porsche? Can Jaguar snap a 6-race losing streak? Or will one of the bold new entries from Detroit break through? Stand by for the real Memorial Day racing classic, the IMSA Lime Rock Camel Grand Prix.
ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. It's hard to think of a more pleasant way to conclude this racing Memorial Weekend than coming to beautiful Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. And come they have in abundant numbers for a record crowd to see 25 of the most sophisticated, most exciting sports cars in the world in action. Hello everyone, I'm Ken Squire, and this is going to be a barn burner. On the pole, the car that spread its wings and took the pole a year ago has now swept the entire front row, and since the season back, they've won a race as well. Drake Olson has driven the Gurney Eagle Toyota to the front of the pack, and Juan Fangio will be alongside when they drop the green on this 25-car field. And colleague David Hobbs, this is going to be a sensational race.
Well, I think you're right, Ken. And of course, the thing is, where are the Nissans? Well, they're back in 6th and 7th spot. Admittedly, their star qualifier was at Indianapolis yesterday, but even so, it's not a good place to start this race from at Lime Rock. But another real surprise on Saturday afternoon was young Tommy Kendall in the normally aspirated Chevrolet engine Spice. He set a cracking pace and came 3rd in qualifying. Now, just last week in the 3rd round of the World Sports Car Prototype Challenge in Silverstone, England, a normally aspirated Spice started in 22nd spot and climbed right through all those turbocharged cars to 3rd overall. So I think we better watch out for young Tommy this afternoon.
It's a warm day, it's a hot field, and this Toyota Trucks Lime Rock Camel Grand Prix. And let's meet the man who will lead the pack when they get the green flag. Bob Barsh is with him now.
After winning their first GTP victory a couple of weeks ago at Topeka, Kansas, they have swept the front row for today's race. Drake Olson is the man on the pole who won his first race at this track 5 years ago this weekend. Drake, what's the confidence level on the team in the wake of your first win?
Oh, it's always been good, but I guess it's a little better now.
What's your plan for the first quarter? You got your teammate right next door.
Oh, I'd like to be there first. If he happens to get a jump and he's clearly ahead, I'll let him go. But I'd like to be there first.
Drake Olson is a pole sitter. It'll be 2 Toyotas into turn 1, but there's a lot of talent lurking further back, and my pit road comrade Rick DeBrule has one of those drivers now.
Well, Bob, not only is there a lot of talent, but there's some new machinery back here. Derek Daley is sitting in the new Nissan that debuted last race. This is its 2nd race. How's it doing?
Well, this car is very good, but it's very new, so like anything new, there's a big learning curve, steep learning curve, but we're learning every lap we do with it.
Derek Daley ready to go. There's also an interesting story that is on the 2nd row. Let's walk on up here real quick. Bernard Jourdain was supposed to be at this race. He was going to be in this Chevy Spice, accompanied by this man, Tommy Kendall. Tommy Kendall now has a new partner in Jay Cochran. Tommy, this is a Chevy-powered Spice, a lot different than those other cars, yet you're on the 2nd row competing very well.
Well, it's kind of nice here on Memorial Day to be representing all the Americans with our good old V8 Chevrolet. And, you know, Bernard's watching back on TV. He's recuperating from a bang at Indy. I've got Jay Cochran. We're ready to go from the 2nd row forward.
Perfect. And we look at the front of the car real quick. It says, "Get well soon, Bernard." So he's home watching.
Let's take a look at the 1.5 mile course over which the battle will be fought here at Lime Rock on this Memorial Weekend. David Hobbs.
Let's go for a ride in the BFG Nissan as we cross the start-finish stripe at about 160 miles an hour and hard on the brakes into the only real passing zone on this track as we go into the double apex turn 1, 3rd gear, swings wide, takes a tight apex on the exit, then hard on the gas and up to turn 2, does not shift up here. This is another corner with a late apex exit because it's really important to get the car lined up for this corner, turn 3, because we lead onto the backstretch here. The back straight it's supposed to be, but as you can see, the road still moves around. Very difficult to pass lap traffic here. Into this fast rising right-hander. At the top now, the new chicane down to second. It's concrete, it's bumpy, and it's very slippery, and it's off camber. A difficult bit of road there. Accelerates up to the box, into fourth, into West Bend. Very fast, but not quite flat out. Slips by some slower traffic on the left, and then down this very steep hill. The car bottoms out here as he gets to the apex. Very, very bumpy. Up to fifth gear again at about 160 miles an hour as he completes a 1.52-mile lap here at Lime Rock. And we'll be back to take a look.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tuesday night, Vintage Racer Group Virtual Racer League tonight. Lime Rock Park Historics in the Ford GT. I'd like to thank Hobbo there for a great tour around the track here at Lime Rock. That was video from the 1990 IMSA GT Championship race here at Lime Rock. What better way to kind of give us an intro here? Similar machinery, sort of, kind of. Of course, we're single maker tonight, fixed setup, so there's not a whole lot of difference between these cars. It all comes down to driver skill. But I'll make sure to put a link to that video in the description when we get this one uploaded to YouTube, because I think it'd be a fascinating race to go back and watch. David Hobbs there, pep in his step and a nice head of hair. Bob Varsha, and a couple other folks on that excellent ESPN broadcasting team back then. This is Ian Wisman with you here this evening. I'm not quite a David Hobbs. I'm not nearly as fast. I have a Pittsburghese accent. But you got me here this evening. As we're getting started here, we're going to do 30 minutes of practice here at Lime Rock, followed by 15 minutes of open qualifying, and then we're going to do a 30-minute feature race here. I'm going to step away here for just a little bit, get myself sorted as we get ready to go racing here at Lime Rock Park in the Ford GT. But I'll be back with you here in just a little bit. We thank you for joining us out there on YouTube and Facebook land. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Make sure you catch us every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock when we're racing here in Season 9, the Ford GT, the VRG GT Series. Again, this is Ian Wisman with the VRG Virtual Race League. Thank you for joining this evening. I'll be back with you in just a little bit. Once again, this is Ian Wisman with the VRG VRL, the Virtual Racer League, with you tonight at Lime Rock Park for the Lime Rock Park Historics. Currently watching Kurt Uzbay driving his Ford GT down the Sam Posey Straight, turned into turn 1 here at Lime Rock. Car very much matches livery of his own Ford GT in the real world, so Kurt, not a stranger to driving these cars. Now out here at Lime Rock with a tenacious group of drivers out on track with him, it does up the challenge just a little bit, and we're going to follow Kurt as he works his way around the course here and up into the uphill turn here. We should see the car catch just a bit of air as he crests the hill. As you can see there, front end lifts up. Got to make sure you have the steering wheel pointed straight, otherwise it gets all kinds of loosey-goosey and generally get all bent out of shape. Coming onto the downhill here, right-hander back onto the front straight. We got 30 minutes of practice here. We're about halfway through it. Picking up right now with Stefan Vappa, who's currently on the top of the timing tower here with a 48.410. Stefan getting ready to go racing this weekend, as are a lot of us here in the VRG VRL. We're all headed to Watkins Glen International this weekend. Do some real-world racing. Stefan with his Macon, taking that out in the Formula Ford Challenge Series. A very healthy group of Formula Fords. Everything from the historic Fords up through the club Fords, so your older style cigar-shaped cars, which I think are beautiful, much like the Macon Stefan races, through the more recent 70s club Ford body types, which get a bit more angular and sort of have some aero built into them. Stefan certainly no stranger to Lime Rock here, and proving as such on the timing tower. Currently second place, Jim Graziano here in this 30-minute practice session. Letting it swing just a bit wide there. Thought I might have hit him with the cameraman's curse here. We jump on board sometimes and things go all haywire, and I promise it's not intentional. Just seems to be a bit of the luck of the draw. Jim pulling the chute there at the end of the front straight. Going to get back out on track. Pick up here with John Clark. John Clark, I believe a fellow mini racer, much like myself, and I do believe will be at Watkins Glen this weekend. So looking forward to meeting John Clark in person and seeing his car. Spent so much time here racing in the sim and iRacing, and some of these folks I haven't met in the real world yet, but I should get the opportunity this weekend, and it looks to be promising weather. I should have the stats department get on that to see what we're looking at here this weekend. Pick up Bob Lang here in a Rothman's liveried Ford GT. Now, fixed setup here in this Ford GT series. Ford GT does require clutching when you're shifting, unlike some of the cars, which are pretty much, well, semi-automatic and the flappy paddles, and not necessarily needing to touch a clutch here. So it does kind of come down to your ability within the car and your knowledge of the course and where you can maybe find some time. It does tend to be a bit of an equalizer here when you can't quite tune the cars. Now, of course, it is a bit of a handful driving these beasts here around Lime Rock, so certainly takes a bit of getting used to here. Now, Dave Curtis, I believe, was our race winner from last weekend. I'll pull those up so we can see just how well we did last weekend. While I'm talking about it, let's pull up the current point standings. See how things are looking. So current championship standings here. Season 9 in the Ford GT2. So we start the Lime Rock Historics. Jeff Underwood's out on top with 124 points. Got Dave Curtis there in the background, currently in second place with 118 points. Wiley Cox working his way up the championship standings here with 110 points. Has benefited from some very patient driving in the first several races here this season. Jim Graziano in fourth with 96 points, and Steve Focaccia rounding out the top 5 with 85 points. John Wood there having a bit of an off. So he's getting his feet back into this car here. We can see John Wood sporting the new VRG logo livery there on his Ford GT. Need to get a hold of those for the graphics department here so the coverage can be running that, repping that new stylish VRG logo. Seems everybody's got cold tires going into one and trying to feel that one out here. Now the first lap or two in these cars, and particularly at Lime Rock, it's a pretty short track. Does take a bit of time to get up to temperature here, so you got to be careful about that, because as we can see here, not too difficult to put it off turn 1 and out into the walls. Unfortunately, nowhere there to go for Bob Lang as Matt got a little loose coming over the top of the hill there. Oh boy. We're going to have a bit of a traffic jam pile up here in this practice session. Damage model in the Ford GT, pretty realistic. Looks like we're going to have to clear the road here. We seem to have been able to take out most of the pack in one incident here, and that tow truck driver is going to be busy here this session. Of course, in iRacing, it's a matter of a quick tow back to the pit lane, hit that quick repair button, and then roll on out, get yourself a fresh car, fresh tires, and have another go at it. We got about 10 minutes remaining here in this practice session. Everybody's probably grabbing a quick beverage and resetting themselves so they can head back on out there. Let's see who's out on track we can pick up. We'll jump with Carlos Bonds running his Mach 5 Sanrio Hello Kitty liveried Ford GT. Everybody gets back out on track here. Follow along with John Wood here. If you haven't picked up your copy of this month's VRG newsletter, very nice article in there about John Wood and a couple other buddies of his that race BMWs in the VRG, 2002 specifically. Nice crop of BMW 2002s in the VRG, and several of those are going to be out this weekend at Watkins Glen. So if you happen to be in the neighborhood, get a hold of somebody and get on their crew and come on in and see what it's all about. Unfortunately, not a spectator event, so if you want to get in, you do have to be on somebody's crew. But we will be there, so you can sit lakeside at Seneca Lake and get some of that fine wine they make up in those parts and listen to the roar of vintage race engines over the trackside. So about 5 minutes left here in this 30-minute practice session. That'll be 15 minutes of open qualifying coming up next. Everybody's going to roll out at the same time, try and set a fast lap time. Now, it's a tight track here at Lime Rock, and it's difficult to find space when you need it, which generally means qualifying gets pretty interesting here and can shake up the grid from what we typically see at some of the bigger tracks we run at. Now, Steve Focaccia, who, as we noted earlier, is 5th place currently in the points, having a bit of an off there. Cold tires, stopping to check on his corner worker there. And while we're there, we'd like to take an opportunity and say thank you to all of our corner workers out there. We can't go racing without you, whether that's in the real world or the virtual world. But look for Steve to put in a strong performance here this evening. Now, he's got a bent wing, and that is going to impact his handling, aerodynamics, and the overall speed. So expect Steve to jump into the pits when he comes down to the bottom of the hill and get that fixed up. Coming up to the end of our 30-minute practice session here, riding along with Stefan Vappa around turn 1. Kurt Uzbey just ahead. We can see here Steve Focaccia, who recently joined the session, is climbing up the timing tower here at 48.668. Stefan's still out on top at that 48.410. We'll see what lap times do once we get into qualifying here. Expect Steve and Stefan to want to get out there quick. Make sure they're running in clean air. But pretty close to the rest of the pack here with the top 5 cars. And then the next 5 after that, all within a couple of tenths or hundredths of each other. It's looking like VRL race chairman Jim Karamanis is sitting in pit lane, just coming out now to start warming up his tires. So we're going to have about 11 competitors here, unless a couple of more folks join before qualifying kicks off. But that'll pause here as Stefan parks it hard into the Jersey barriers at the end of the front straight there. And we'll pull up our current championship points. We can see how everybody's doing right now. Jeff Underwood's out on top. Dave Curtis in second. Now, Jeff's not in this race, so he stands to fall off that top position in the standings if Dave Curtis can put in a decent race here. You see in the background there, Stefan Vappa is first out on course. Start warming up those tires and setting a quick lap. You can see just how much he's having to fight this car in those first couple of turns out of the pit lane. Wiley Cox in 3rd place, Jim Graziano in 4th, and Steve Focaccia in 5th place. Hide those points, pull up our timing and scoring tower. Once we start turning laps, those will populate, and we can see how this is going to go. So 15 minutes of open qualifying here. Everybody's out at the same time. Follow along now with Stefan Vappa as he comes around for the first of his flying laps here. .49.142, so about a half second off from his practice pace there, but we expect Stefan there to get quicker. Now he is going to have to catch up to some traffic here in a little bit because a couple of folks just rolled out of the pit lane here. So as noted, it's difficult to find clean laps here at Lime Rock, so it's a matter of kind of balancing where you're out on track with the traffic to make sure you can get that clear air you need to set a quick lap. John Wood putting in his first flying lap at a 51.320. This is going to shuffle around quite a bit as everybody gets up to speed, gets up to temp on the tires, and puts down their fast laps. Looks like Stefan's got some air here. We'll see just how quickly he catches up with, I believe that's Jim Graziano ahead of him. Steve Focaccia also just rolling out of the pits there. Kudos to Steve Focaccia for putting out his weekly fast lap of the course. Sends that out to everybody in the VRL and ahead of time so we can all see how you should go around the track and where you might be able to find some time if you're struggling to get quicker. No matter how many times I try to follow along, I'm always 3 to 5 tenths behind. So I'm leaving a lot out there, but Steve does seem to have some supernatural ability here in the sims. Steve going to the top of the timing tower there with a 48.773, so I'm sure, and Stefan answers right back with a 48.564, so expect this to bounce back and forth between those two. The remainder of this 15-minute session, about 4 minutes into this. And as I mentioned, if you haven't picked up the most recent copy of the VRG newsletter, definitely something you want to check out. Swing past the VRG's website, vrgonline.org/newsletter, or just hit vrgonline.org. The menu will take you there, and the webmaster, who is also broadcasting this evening, is going to update the website, make it a little bit easier to find, because there is some great stuff in these newsletters. Kudos to the team that puts these together. Bill Stoller with the excellent photography, Rob Brownlee Tommaso for putting the whole production together. We've got a couple of other seasoned and amateur writers who put together some great copy for us. Nice write-up on the Lime Rock Historics. Lime Rock 39 having just taken place, the VRG up there. A bevy of excellent vintage machinery and some great photos contained within, as mentioned, Bill Stoller, the VRG lensman. John Clark coming up over the hill, currently qualifying in 6th position with a 49.355. We'll see if John's able to speed this up just a little bit. Looks at the top of the tower there. Stefan setting fastest lap at a 48.305. John just a little bit slower there on that lap. We'll see how Focaccia can do and see if he can take back that pole position from Stefan. Slightly different lines there between those two. Steve keeping a bit more to the inside there. Stefan taking a little bit more track. Both down just a little bit there. A bit of a collision there with Courteous Bay John Wood. They'll clear that up. Hopefully not impact those coming around here on qualifiers. For those watching at home, all the drivers are in contact with each other on a radio net inside the sim, so they can all talk to each other, give point buys, and of course apologize for actions out on track. All very gentlemanly. Occasionally not G-rated, so we tend not to broadcast the in-car chatter. Riding along here with Mac McCormick. Mac's going to be joining us at Watkins Glen. Unfortunately, not bringing as many. Having to put together a new motor. I understand he broke a crank last time he had the Mini out. Luckily, it all generally stayed together in the motor. The bearing kept it in place, and he was able to get it back to the paddock without having too much collateral damage. But then, of course, does have to go find a new crank and build a motor. Of course, we had Mac joined us last week in the broadcast booth here, and as we know, Mac and his wife Lee, corner workers at the SCCA National Championship runoffs that were recently held at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Carlos Bonds with a strong qualifying performance here this evening. Currently qualified in 4th place at 48.887. So about 5/10 then separating the top 2 runners from the rest of the field, but otherwise pretty close to the remainder of it. So that should make for a good race. John Wood seemed to have caught a speed bump there coming up over the hill. Somehow kept it reasonably well together. Just under 5 minutes remaining here in our 15-minute qualifying session here as Stefan attempts to paint the Armco yellow. We'll pick it up with Steve Focaccia here, who's coming down the hill and looks to be trying to build a bit of a gap between the cars ahead of him. Steve's going to benefit from a bit of a tow here, but traffic might have been a bit too much the remainder of that lap to allow him to set a quick lap there. See, he's purple in Sector 1, but everywhere else not quick enough there. Now, 12 minutes into 15 minutes of qualifying here. Seems there's a bit more open air out on track at the moment, so this might be Steve's opportunity to stand on it here in just a little bit and try and get some open air. Currently Stefan Vapp out on top. A little too much curb there for Steve, upsetting the car. Apologies for stepping away there for a moment. This weekend coming up, Watkins Glen VRG is going to be there for the Bog at the Glen. Not sure if we're calling it that year, but I kind of like it. If you're familiar with the Glen, you know what the Bog is. Subsequent week, Dipasport, a wholly owned subsidiary of B&W Autosport, is headed out to Mid-Ohio to compete with American Endurance Racing AER for 2 8-hour days of endurance racing at Mid-Ohio. I'm just trying to coordinate the logistics of that one there. So if you happen to be out near Lexington, Ohio, enjoy Mid-Ohio. It's a beautiful course where I cut my teeth as a young lad watching kart IndyCar. Definitely stop out in 2 weeks' time at Mid-Ohio for AER. It's Saturday and Sunday, both days, 8 hours of racing each. And then this weekend coming up, the VRG will be at Watkins Glen International. And that will do it for qualifying. It looks like Steve Focaccia there puts in a ringer towards the end with a 48.156, pipping Stefan off the top of the tower there. So this should make for some exciting racing here in our upcoming 30-minute feature race for the Lime Rock Park Historics with the VRG Virtual Racer League. This is Ian Wisbon. I'm your broadcaster here this evening, all by myself up in the booth. I smell some delicious chili cooking downstairs, so my lovely wife making sure that I am well fed after putting in a hard day's work here broadcasting for the VRG VRL. So, a few more cars out there on track. Once they get back to the pit lane, Barney doing his job there, waving that flag. We'll get set up here and we'll pull up the starting grid for our 30-minute feature race. Once timing and scoring gets those official qualifying times up to us. Pulling up the grid here for the VRG GT Series Season 9 and the Ford GT2 GT3 Lime Rock Park Historics. Qualifying in pole position, Steve Focaccia. Second position, Stefan Vappa. P3's Dave Curtis. Fourth, Carlos Bonds. Strong qualifying position there from Carlos here this evening. Jim Graziano's in fifth. John Clerk in sixth. VRL Chairman Jim Caramanis in seventh. Bob Lang in eighth. Kurt Ousbay ninth. John Wood 10th. Mac McCormick in 11th position. Should make for some exciting racing here. Now, Lime Rock's not a very big course, and as you can see, these cars are quite big and tend to move quite quickly, so it'll get pretty congested there at the start. Get a bit of air, and then you're right back into traffic, so this generally makes for a pretty white-knuckle affair here as everybody gets themselves situated, working their way around the course here. Now, everybody's out on the grid. It's going to be a short pace lap here. We're going to start, I think, up on the top of the hill, come down. Pace car is going to tuck in right at the bottom of the hill there. And then the green flag is going to drop, and we will be racing. So look for Steve Focaccia and Stefan Vappa to go back and forth here, trading laps all throughout qualifying. And I expect the same here under race conditions. Pace car is rolling off. Lights are up. We'll look for those to go green. Green flag has dropped, and we are racing. Steve Focaccia on the inside there. Our pole sitter, Stefan Vappa on the outside. We'll watch this into turn one, see if they can make it through clear. Dave Curtis just behind Carlos Bonds. And Dave Curtis, see how they do back there. Cold tires, so everybody's got to play it pretty nice and easy through turn one. Looks like we're clean thus far through one. Jump back a little bit further in the grid, make sure everybody gets through cleanly. Looks to be okay thus far. Steve Focaccia leading the pack through the first couple of turns here at Lime Rock. Now heading up the hill this first time, always a bit of a gut check here. You can't push it too hard. You got to make sure your wheel's straight when you come up over the hill. You see just how much those cars will be squirrely as they come up and over the crest of that hill. Now back down the downhill and onto the long Sam Posey straight. Steve Focaccia and Stefan gapping just a little bit here. Dave Curtis in third position, Carlos Bonds in fourth, Jim Graziano in fifth. Clean thus far. I don't see any incidents reported on my timing and scoring sheets here, so we're clean so far. Timing and scoring should start to fill up here. Just a moment. There we go. We can see how we're running at the moment. Bob Lang picking up 2 places there at the start of that race. Steve Focaccia still leading. Focaccia, Vappa, Curtis, Bonds, and Graziano. Jump back a bit here to Bob Lang, just behind to John Clerk. And another gaggle of cars as we get Kurt Ousbay leading this next pack. That's Kurt Ousbay, Jim Caramanis, Mac McCormick, and then there's John Wood there towards the back. Looks like Mac and Jim are going to go to the outside. Kurt must have cut a tire. Looks like he's a little low there in the right front, coming in for a quick repair there. Riding on the nose of Dave Curtis here as we come down the downhill. We see Stefan and Steve Focaccia just ahead there. Pretty close, those two, and it's going to be that way through the rest of the race. Now they're going to catch up the traffic here in just a little bit. We can see Kurt Uzbey's rolling out of the paddock there. His bubble just lighting up on the map, so he'll be on the inside of one as Steve and Stefan come through here. Let's jump back out a little bit so we can get a shot at what's going on here. Now that's going to give Stefan a chance here with Focaccia and Dave Curtis behind, so Kurt Uzbey is going to make a bit of a rolling chicane here for these guys to navigate. We'll see if they can get around him cleanly and keep on racing, but it's just what Stefan needs to get up on Focaccia's rear bumper there. You know, neck and neck as they come to the right-hander on the uphill here. Kurt's going to tuck in between Stefan and Steve, set the block there just a little bit. That's going to allow a bit of a gap to build up once again between Stefan and third place Dave Curtis. So Dave's probably not too happy about that, but we've got 30 minutes of racing here, and it will become more difficult as everybody catches up, though everybody's generally staying in a pretty tight pack here. Everybody just about managing to be on the front straight at the same time. Carlos Bonds seems to be okay back here in fourth place, not necessarily being challenged by anybody, so if he can keep this up, very strong running effort by Carlos here this evening in that Mach 5 Sanrio Hello Kitty car. Dave Curtis going off hard there, coming off the downhill. Unfortunate. We'll have to go back and see what happened to Dave there because he was running real strong. Let's jump back and pick up a replay here on Dave. Coming the downhill, grabs a bit of the inside curb there, just too much. Hooks that right front over the inside curbing, which totally upset the car and then threw him to the outside. Dave will head back to the pits, pick up a quick repair, get back out on track with this. Unfortunate there for Dave, who's been running real strong here in Season 9 in the Ford GT. Not a whole lot of time separating these two. We'll pull up our sectors here and see how we're doing. Carlos Bonds now in third place after Dave Curtis having his off. Now he's caught up behind Kurt Uzbey, and Kurt can be racy. It's one thing to catch up a car that's generally a lot slower than you. It's another thing to catch up a driver who just happens to have had a bit of a shunt and comes out in traffic with you and can maintain pace. Now let's see what Carlos can do with Kurt here on the Sam Posey straight. Graziano is behind Carlos, though a bit in the distance. Carlos and Kurt both braking hard to go into one there. Looks like Kurt locked him up just a little bit. That's going to run him off the course there. And Carlos now got clean air again and can start pursuing Stefan and Steve, though it looks like Stefan might have had a bit of an off here and has fallen off from Focaccia. We'll jump back here in the instant replay and see what happened to Stefan, who was running second place. Sorry about that, folks. Wrong replay. Stefan having just a bit of a bobble there, working through that rather difficult left-hand turn there and getting just a little bit loose, which then allowed Focaccia to pull away. Pulling back up with our race leader here. So that's Steve Focaccia all on his own now, out in front. Quite a bit of ways back to second place. Now second place, Carlos Bond. So Steve's got clear air. Nobody's really ahead of him, and these cars being so evenly matched, generally staying together, so not as much traffic as I was necessarily anticipating. Now we got 30 minutes in this race, so there's still a long ways to go, and expect it to bunch up just a little bit here. Now, you hate to see one of the top drivers necessarily have a bit of a mix-up like that, but one of the benefits of it, particularly when Stefan's the, I'll say, perpetrator in that case, we do get the benefit of watching him race back up through the pack. So Stefan was running P2, fell back quite a bit there. He's now currently in P4 and all over Jim Graziano's back porch. That Castrol liveried Ford GT has a bit of a red back porch, so I guess you could say Stefan's kind of painting it red. We'll see if Jim can hold him off and Stefan can capitalize. Carlos Bond's P2 just ahead of him, so a pretty tight group of cars here. Definitely illustrating just how much of a jump you get in that car coming up over that hill. So wheels straight, maybe take a bit of a breath there on the accelerator and get the car to settle down just a little bit. Jim and Stefan there in the distance. Second place, Carlos Bonds right now. So Carlos has to be pretty happy with his performance. Looks like Stefan's diving the inside of Jim Graziano back there. Does he manage to make it stick? And it seems that he does. Stefan Vappa moved there for third place. Looks like Jim did his best, but Stefan executing nicely there and making his way around Jim. Watch that one from the TV cameras. You get a better look at just how Stefan managed to pull this one off. Drag race down, start finish. Stefan going to the inside, braking a little bit harder. Jim exercising a bit of discretion there. Recognizing Stefan racing his way back up through the grid, and lots of time remaining on the clock. Race leader Steve Focaccia out on his own here at Lime Rock. Putting down some quick laps here. Currently fastest lap of a 48.270. We'll look back at Stefan Vappa, who's currently in third place with a 48.407. Carlos is in between those two, a 48.768. So Carlos is going to have to find some pace here, because Stefan's definitely going to be able to pick him up here in relatively short order. Watch here as we see Stefan chasing Carlos Bonds. The difference in deltas here as they race through the sectors. Sectors 1 and 3 relatively even for these two, but 2 and 4 problematic for Carlos, and as we can see, Stefan has definitely closed the gap here. on about a half a second, 5/10 or so. It may not look all that close from out of the gearbox, but I promise you Carlos's mirrors are full of Stefan right now, and he's not looking forward to it. See here, Stefan picking up a bit of a draft there towards the tail end of the front straight and able to get right up on Carlos's rear as they enter into turn 1 here. And he'll stick close with him. And then it's all about modulation of the throttle through here. Turn in hard and try and keep as much traction as you can and power away. Stefan carrying just a bit more speed through the downhill right-hander, down the front straight, all over Carlos's rear. Close enough. Is he going to make a move into 1? He's going to back off once again and make Carlos think about it. Sometimes it's not so much about making the pass yourself, but perhaps forcing the guy ahead of you to make an error. And just the slightest bobble, and gives you the opportunity to capitalize on that. A bit of a chopper cam here. Unfortunately, cars are down over the other side of the hillside. I believe this chopper is sponsored by Treacle Insurance. Darren Treacle, one of our VRL competitors, recently returned from the SCCA National Championship runoffs at Indianapolis. We certainly thank Treacle Insurance for the air coverage here at Lime Rock Park this evening, and we look forward to having Darren back with us. Stefan sticking his nose into turn 1. Carlos on the outside. Stefan taking the room into 1. Carlos a bit of a bump there on the right quarter. Carlos coming right back at Stefan though, and tucking to the inside. Looks like he's not going to give that one up very easily, and takes it right back from Stefan. So kudos there to Carlos Bonds for taking the position back after losing it in 1 there. Stiff competition here. We're coming up on halfway through this 30-minute feature race at Lime Rock Park, the Lime Rock Park Historics with the VRG Virtual Racer League. My name is Ian Wisbon. I'm your broadcaster this evening. We do this every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Next week, we're headed to Watkins Glen. And we're going to Watkins Glen in the real world this weekend, trying to mimic as best we can the calendar that the VRG runs during the regular year out in the real world. And we certainly thank you for joining us on YouTube and Facebook. Hit that like and hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to join us, swing by vrgonline.org. Hit the contact form, send us an email. We'll tell you how to go about doing this, what kind of equipment you need. It's a heck of a way to practice your racing skills in the winter months. Keeps you sharp. And if you're going to go run a track for the first time in the real world, say you're going to head to Lime Rock Park or Watkins Glen, I can tell you from experience, the sim is very accurate. Stefan sticking his nose in again. Turn 1. Looks like he's got it all the way for certain this time. We'll see if Carlos can respond like he did last lap. Stefan pulling away just a little bit, but Carlos is able to make a lot of headway here into the left-hander. Through the uphill, but Stefan looks to be gapping Carlos, so has shaken him loose here. Carlos putting in an outstanding drive, however, this evening, currently running second place. Let's pick it up with our race leader and see how he's doing. Steve Focaccia out here on his own still, perhaps enjoying a coffee beverage while he's taking a drive here around Lime Rock Park. So way out in front, not really a threat for Steve at this point in time. Still a lot of time left in this, 16 minutes into a 30-minute race. We'll run down the rest of the timing and scoring tower and see how everybody's doing. Jim Graziano currently running in 4th position. A bit on his own out here. Seems to be 11 cars are just about right for making sure there's some excitement on track, but not so much traffic that you're constantly dealing with it. John Clerk rounding out our top 5 as he comes over the downhill. Out onto the Sam Posey straight. Sixth place, Bob Lang. Dave Curtis, who had a very unfortunate incident earlier in this race, has gone in, gotten his repairs, and currently running in 7th place. A bit off pace from his usual. Looks like his last lap was a 49.53. But still some time here for Bob to make up the difference. Now we can see Stefan and Carlos behind, so Dave in trouble of being lapped. Is that who is behind him? John Wood, Jan Baas, running in P8. Currently a lap down from the rest of our competitors. Kurt Ousby making his way down the front straight. Nice overhead shot there. Back up to our race leader, Steve Focaccia. Still fastest lap with a 48.270. Looks like he's purple all the way around here. We'll see if he can improve upon that one, but currently no threat to Steve. Carlos taking 2nd place back from Stefan Vappa, so we're going to have to jump back and see what happened there. Looks like Stefan had an off track, so let's check the replay. Into 1, braking hard, turning in. Gets a little wide there, out into the marbles, and loses it just a bit. Carlos is able to get back around and take 2nd place away from Stefan. And Carlos has put some time and distance between him and 3rd place Stefan Vappa. Minutes remaining in this 30-minute feature race here at Lime Rock Park Historics, riding along with Stefan Vappa in 3rd place, who's chasing Carlos Bonds ahead there in 2nd position. And we can see Stefan's quicker in the past couple of sectors by a couple of tenths, a couple of hundredths. See some smoke up ahead, so there was an unfortunate off up there, and looks like Steve Focaccia may have run into a bit of an incident there with some lap traffic and has gone into the pits for a quick repair. Carlos Bonds, our new race leader here. Stefan Vappa moving up into 2nd. Carlos has to be excited here. I'm sure he's probably a bit excited at this point in time, so let's see if he can keep those nerves under control for the remaining 8 minutes of this race. We can see John Wood there coming back on track, kicking up some grass after being off. Expect John to move out of the way there as the race leaders come through, but Stefan has managed to capitalize on a bit of a lift there from Carlos as they caught up the traffic here and is now all over Carlos's back end. Steve Focaccia still in the pit lane, hasn't rolled off yet. Unfortunately, because Lime Rock is just such a short track, the race leaders have already come around and lapped him. So he's going to have to come back out and fight his way back up here with about 7 minutes remaining in this race. So currently riding second place, Stefan Vappa, and Carlos Bonds ahead in first place. It's going to be a very defensive drive here for Carlos the rest of the way out here. Stefan has proven to be quick around most of the course here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to pass. So if Carlos can kind of keep him jammed up here in the twisty bits of the course, and then put a little distance on him coming on the downhill, he should be able to keep him at bay, but I'm sure Stefan has something in his back pocket. Carlos breaking hard into one and Stefan just behind there, both falling about the same line through the turn. Wouldn't expect anything terribly dramatic from these two here. We are getting into the closing minutes of the race, and you do want to conserve the position that you're in, not risk it for a pass that may be ill-timed or conceived. Now Stefan's going to be sticking his nose in there, goes through the inside of Carlos. See if Carlos can pull it back around as they go up the uphill, but Stefan successfully executing the pass there for lead of the race here. Carlos Bonds sticking to Stefan's back end here. Stefan able to get a bit of distance between him and Carlos. So a new race leader here, Stefan Vappa. Steve Focaccia leading the majority of the race. Carlos and Stefan trading second and third position back and forth. We'll see if Stefan can put the hammer down here, but it seems that traffic I mentioned at the top of the race does seem to be coming into play here, as they will be coming up on some slower traffic here, at which Carlos may be able to capitalize on this, depending upon when they pick it up. Steve Focaccia has rejoined the race back in 7th position. Unfortunate for him, and a lap down. Mac McCormick just ahead of Stefan Vappa here. Carlos Bonds in second place. Stefan able to get around Mac rather gracefully. Carlos as well. The right-hander in the uphill. Third place, Jim Graziano has a lot of time and distance between him and second place, but Steve Focaccia's not too far behind, though. Steve is a lap down, so not really racing for position here. Steve just trying to make his way back up through the grid. Under 5 minutes remaining. Stefan gapping Carlos. And under 4 minutes remaining here, so unless Carlos finds a whole lot of time here, or Stefan has an unfortunate encounter with some lap traffic, we may be looking at our finishing order here. Of course, I think Carlos would be pretty excited to finish where it's running right now, though I'm sure he wished it would have ended a couple of laps sooner when he was leading the race. But still, a fantastic drive here this evening from Carlos, looking to get his thoughts here in the post-race interviews. 2 minutes remaining in this 30-minute race here at Lime Rock Park, currently with race leader Stefan Vapp as he's coming up on a bit of lap traffic here for the next couple of turns here. We'll see if Carlos Bonds can capitalize on this here. Not a great place to run into traffic as it's going to kind of jam Stefan up. It should allow Carlos to close this gap just a little bit. We can see it up in the timing and scoring tower. It is coming down rather precipitously here. Down to a 1.5 seconds. Bob Lang breaking a little bit early there. Stefan getting on the binders, and we see Carlos behind. Coming down the downhill here. Stefan should be able to sling around Bob here and get some space that he needs. Having to cut to the inside there. Carlos, the gap down to about 1.2 seconds. So making up that gap, but he's going to get stuck behind Bob Lang as they turn into turn 1 here, and that is going to probably play into Stefan's hands. Bob Lang losing it there. Carlos deftly avoiding and able to stay close there with Stefan, keeping this within about 1.5 seconds. Closing seconds of this race. We're going to stay with first and second place here and see if Carlos is able to catch up to Stefan. Time-based race, so Stefan should get around before we hit 30 minutes, so there's going to be one lap after this. We should see Barney throwing that white flag as Stefan comes around down the San Posi straight here. Stretching that lead out 1.5 seconds, so it is growing. We do see Barney throwing the white flag, so Stefan Vapp currently working the last lap here at the Lime Rock Park Historics with the VRG VRL. It's been an exciting one thus far. Steve Focaccia leading the majority of our race, but had an unfortunate incident there. Had to go into the pits and pick up a repair and fell way down the timing and scoring sheets into 7th place and a lap down. Stefan Vapp and Carlos Bonds here have been trading it back and forth all race long. Stefan able to just stick with Carlos and able to put it in, and I think turn 1 there, and has not looked back since. Well, I'm sure he's done a lot of looking back, but not really had to worry about it just yet. Carlos putting in an outstanding effort, sticking with Stefan here and driving to a solid 2nd place finish here, but it looks like this is going to be our finishing order here as Stefan comes down the hill for the last time. Right-hander onto the San Posi straight. And it's looking like as Barney pulls out that checkered flag, Stefan goes to the inside, blinking those lights. Stefan Vapp is going to be our race winner here this evening. Carlos Bonds finishing in 2nd place. Carlos getting all kinds of squirrely, well-deserved spin out there for Carlos. Kept it under control for 30 minutes there, and an excellent drive from Carlos to pick up 3rd place finisher. Jim Graziano here coming around onto the front straight. Should see the celebrating 1st and 2nd place finishers as he comes in 3rd place. Congratulations there to Jim. Excellent drive here this evening. John Clerk coming around for a solid P4. Pick it up Dave Curtis, who had a strong qualifying and early race. Unfortunately had a big shunt coming down the downhill and is going to finish in 5th place here. Unfortunate for Dave, but still brings it home and is going to score some points. We'll see how that all shakes out once we get our final finishing positions here from timing and scoring. Celebratory waggle there from Dave. We'll wrap it up here as the rest of the field comes through and picks up the checkered flag from Barney Bob Lang. Going to finish here in 6th place. Everybody else picked up the checker. And we should get our results from timing and scoring here. Driving it back into the pits, putting it onto the trailer the way you drove it off. Always a good thing, and the crew very much appreciates it. Not going to have to put it back together next week for Watkins Glen. Jumping up to the Treacle Insurance blimp. Now let's wait for our results here from timing and scoring. They should be up here very shortly. And our race winner here this evening, Stefan Vapp, finishing in 1st position. Carlos Bonds, a solid 2nd place drive there, picking up 40 points. Jim Graziano is going to be P3 at 35 points. John Clerk, 4th place. Dave Curtis rounding out the top 5. Remaining finishers, Bob Lang, Steve Focaccia, John Wood, Mac McCormick, Kurt Uzbe, Jim Karamanis. We'll update those timing and scoring sheets here in just a moment. Our overall championship standings coming up now that we have points all tabulated, calculated. Dave Curtis finishing this evening in 5th place, but jumping up to the top of the point standings here at 148 points. Jim Graziano with a solid drive finishing in 3rd this evening. It's going to be P3. Jim Graziano P2. Jeff Underwood's going to fall down to third place. Didn't compete tonight. Steve Focaccia, unfortunately, a strong drive from him this evening. Fell down in the points, but climbs his way up to fourth position. Wiley Cox is going to be in fifth. Bob Lang in sixth. Stefan Vappa, seventh place. Carlos Bonds, eighth. Kurt Uzbey, ninth. John Clark running out that top 10. Now I'm going to jump over to our Discord and see if I can pull in some of our competitors here this evening for a post-race chat and bevy. Be back with you in just a moment. All right, this is Ian Wisman with the VRG VRL. Back with you here. We have a couple of our race competitors in the booth with us this evening. One of them's gone off to try and find our second place finisher, Carlos Bonds, this evening, because don't often get a chance to talk with Carlos, but certainly would like to get his opinion on his drive this evening. But joining me here this evening, we have race winner, Stefan Vappa, who I presumed would be race winner, Steve Focaccia, but unfortunately finishing back in seventh place. We've also got Jim Graziano finishing in third, and then Bob Lang's here finishing P6. We'll start off with our race winner here this evening, Stefan. It was an exciting race, I think, from our perspective up here. It looked like you had a bit of a handful there, and Carlos certainly giving you a heck of a drive here out at Lime Rock this evening. How'd you do? How was your race? Give us your thoughts.
You know, we call this the bull ring, and I don't think it could have been more challenging if there were real bulls in it. It's one of my favorite courses, but it's super just I don't know. It's very flowy, and if you get out of that, if you start to get tight, if you start thinking about anything but what you're doing, there it goes, and it all just goes. It feels like it's such a narrow track, and so I had a couple of oopses that set me back, but you know, you never give up. You keep on pushing, and you don't know what's going to happen. So I caught up to Jim, and he gave me a good fight. Got him going into Big Bend, which is my preferred passing point, but everybody was braking pretty much where they needed to. So you had to take a different line and just take away the entry, kind of delay their turn in to make that pass work, because the braking zone is really, relatively short given the speed of the cars. And so I got by him and then set off after Carlos, and then I got up to him, and I thought I had the pass done, but I ended up bumping him a little bit, and I didn't want it to go like that. So invited him to take that position back and chased him down for a second time. Got it clean, and then pulled another oops. just to make it hard on myself. So I had to chase him down and pass him for a third time. So yeah, had a great run with Carlos, and we were talking in the sim, and just kind of commenting on our own inability to put in consistent clean laps. But can't complain about the result.
Well, it was certainly a heck of a lot of fun for us to watch up here, and I kind of thought perhaps you gave the position back. I'll have to talk to the race chairman, see if we can give you some bonus points for being a gentleman out there. But it was a whole lot of fun to watch you two tossing it back and forth there throughout the remainder of the race there for sure. So congratulations on a hard-fought win there. It looked like the traffic wasn't necessarily going to play into things, but then things got rather spicy there. And, Steve, I'm going to throw it to you for a minute there because it looked like you had this one pretty much cinched up there. And we didn't see all of it, but it seems like you might have had a bit of a come together with some lap traffic. Unfortunate for you there because I think you remained quickest in the race through the duration of the race, but bit of a stumble there. How was it for you this evening, Steve?
It was pretty good until it wasn't. We were entering the final corner. I was coming over the hill, and there was a car sideways blocking the road. And as you crest that hill, it's blind until you can't do anything about it. So that was it. Hit the car and had to stop for a fast repair. I made a mistake. I got a slowdown entering the pit, so I got a time penalty. So that really finished off my day. Definitely wasn't going to win, but probably was looking at maybe a podium without that. But it's a tight track, and there's really nowhere to go. I mean, I forget who the car was that was sideways, but I mean, you can only get off the track so fast. So not a whole lot they probably could have did, and I was just kind of along for the ride at that point.
Well, unfortunate there for you, Steve. But regardless, you are climbing your way up the championship standings with your finish tonight. You're now sitting in 4th place, a little bit ahead of Stefan. I'm going to go back and check my math on all this, make sure I'm right about that. But so not all for naught, and still had a blast watching your race out there. Now let's see. It looks like Jim is still on mute. He's back. Jim, 2nd place finish here. Wait. Is that correct? Is that let me see. Third place. Sorry, I'm looking at the points. Got to pull up that. There we go. 3rd place. So a bit of attrition, but you still got to drive it there to the end. How was your race this evening, Jim?
Yeah, no, it was good. I started out behind Carlos, and I'm like, just stay behind Carlos, and let's see what could happen. And something happened to Dave. We passed him, and then all of a sudden Stefan's off. I'm like, oh shit, oh wow, Stefan's behind me. It's like, okay, when do I let him by? Because he's gonna catch me. But every turn I'm like, oh no, I'm still good. And then that first turn, I'm like, okay, he's got me now. So that was that. And then I was just in 4th. I was like, okay, I was watching John behind me, watching his gap, trying to make sure he didn't decrease it. And then next thing I know, I was in 3rd. I didn't know what happened to Steve. And then later in the race, Steve, I didn't even know he was there. He came up on me, and then I'm like, oh, go by. But I should have not done it there, I think, where I did it. But we almost crashed or whatever, but we had a light tap, but it was fun. It was good.
Yeah.
I'll take the 3rd. It's my first podium ever here, I think. So.
Well, congratulations on that one. I mean, you got to take them when you can get them. So no harm, no foul there. And again, it's always great to watch you up here. And car looks great. I got to tell you, excellent choice in livery there. The Ford GT really pops in that Castro livery.
Yeah, no, I like that one. It's good. Carlos said he was trying to find his password, so hopefully he finds it.
No, okay. Well, if Carlos can do this again next week, and he tends to be strong at Watkins Glen, I'm sure we'll get the chance to talk to him sooner than later. Now we'll hand it over to Bob. Bob, thanks for joining us here in the broadcast booth, finishing P6 here this evening. How was your race? How'd you find Lime Rock? It looked to be a bit of a blender from our vantage point up here and from the Treacle Insurance blimp.
Well, I like Lime Rock because it's sort of close to my house, and I'm pretty satisfied with my performance. I had 2 whoopses going into Big Bend. I have no clue how I missed the breaking point or whatever, but I felt like I had a pretty good race, and without those, I probably would have been in 5th place probably. So it's all good.
Well, nice work. That puts you currently in 6th place in the championship standing. So certainly, as we work our way through season 9 here, every point you can get becomes important. It's pretty close this season, so everybody be keeping an eye out on those top 10 points finishers to see how we do. We'll throw it back here to Stefan. You can wrap up here this evening. Now, next week we're headed to Watkins Glen, and this weekend we're headed to Watkins Glen. So we'll get some real-world track experience this weekend to practice for the sim. Are you looking forward to the Glen, both in the real world and in the sim, Stefan?
I absolutely am. In fact, I think tomorrow night I'm going to do some practicing at the Glen in the Skip Barber car, because I looked at my laps there from several seasons ago, and then I looked at my lap times in my Formula Ford, and they are essentially identical. it's it's amazing how similar the two cars are. So I think that's going to give me um, a, a real head start on getting comfortable. Um, Seems like we might have a little bit of a wet track in the real world, so unfortunately, that's not something I'm going to get to practice. But at least I'll get my head on straight for where the corners go, and should be good. We've got looks like a really strong showing coming up at the Glen, uh, and I'm looking forward to seeing all my friends again.
This is in the lobby, just so you know.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay. Hang on. We're going to grab Carlos real quick, get a couple of words from him, and then we can jump off here for the rest of the evening. Carlos, this is Ian up in the broadcast booth. You read me? Carlos, you read me? Oh, he dropped out. Might be having some technical issues there. Well, on that note, we'll get ready to wrap up here. Just, Stefan, real quick, why don't you give us 30 seconds? Tell us what you're going to be racing here this weekend at Watkins Glen, because if you're telling me I can race a Skippy in iRacing, and it's very similar to racing a Macon Formula Ford, that means I'm not as far away from racing an open-wheel Formula Ford as I think I am.
I think you can drive that car, drive the Skippy at Watkins Glen, and expect it to be essentially the same. Like I say, my lap time that I ran recently, actually in the Skippy, was about a 212 and a half, and I looked at my lap time there from the Macon last season, and I ran about a 215, and was looking at the fastest Formula Ford that was there that weekend, and he ran about a 211 and a half. So that's right on the money. And as I recall, looking at the trap speeds at the top of the hill, within a mile an hour or two of my Formula Ford. Climbing the hill and you get up to wherever we're getting to the crest, and I think it's about 115, and then you finish the straightaway before you enter the bus stop, about 125, and that's dead on the money about what I can do in the Formula Ford. So that's my, you said to mention what I'm going to be racing. That's the 1969 Macon MR7, which will be one of 3 there that weekend. Our wonderful sponsor, Matthew Barbour, and his office service company, and his father are going to be there. And I think that's probably 3 of the 5 Macon MR7s that are in the country will be on track together.
Well, I'll try and get some photos for next week's broadcast so we can kind of see what this looks like in the wild. But I certainly appreciate you sharing a bit of sim versus real world and just how similar these things are. I think we all find it to be a pretty useful tool, particularly in the off season. But sometimes it's a little hard to understand, just how much the sim can be like the real world, and how much it, helps keep sharp for the rare occasions when we get to take these fine automobiles out on track. Well, so I certainly appreciate that, Stefan.
Yeah, maybe I'll see if I can figure out a way to overlay some of my data from the Ford with some of the data from the Skippy, and there's got to be a way to do that, right?
Oh, I'm sure there is. We'll have plenty of time this weekend around a beverage or two to block and tackle that one. So, well, I certainly thank you all for joining me up here in the broadcast booth this evening. Pretty exciting stuff. Steve, unfortunate for you here this evening, but I'm sure you're going to bring it right back to us next week when we go to Watkins Glen. Stefan, congratulations there this evening. Excellent drive, and best of luck to you this weekend, and I'll see you here in just a couple of days. Bob and Jim, we certainly appreciate you joining us in the booth, and look forward to talking to you again next week when we race Watkins Glen.
Awesome.
All right, gents, y'all have a good evening. I'm going to sign off on the other side, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me up in the broadcast booth. This is Ian Wisbin with the Virtual Racer League, the VRG Virtual Racer League. Next week, we're going to be at Watkins Glen International. this weekend in the real world, we're going to be at Watkins Glen International. So if you happen to be in the area, stop by, say hello. We will be out on track, as Stefan mentioned. He'll be out in his Formula Ford is making a beautiful car. And a bevy of other, I think we have around 150 entries at Watkins Glen this weekend coming up, so it's going to be a great weekend for us. And we appreciate you joining us here on YouTube and Facebook and watching us at the VRG Virtual Racer League, broadcasting every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. If you'd like to do this with us, swing past vrgonline.org, hit that contact page and get in touch with us, and we'll tell you just how to do it. And we hope you have a lovely remainder of your Tuesday evening and a great rest of your week, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. at Watkins Glen International. This is Ian Wisbin for the VRG Virtual Racer League signing off. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you soon.